It is Monday. We're coming in hot already. So much to talk about. Is this the end of the chip shortage? We have some information that maybe indicates that it is. Also have a retail report on millennials and Kyle telling us about his service experience.
Everywhere I go, the people really want to know who I is and who
I don't
be.
know.
They stop and
I
stare
think
when they
people
see
don't.
me.
I
Consider once, no
actually,
need to repeat. Run up
I
on
know
me,
that people
pause
don't
me,
fully
sit
understand
back. When it's time for the
the
kill,
level of intensity that's about to happen when you or I walk in to a dealership service experience.
I'm like, I think they might just see antennas come like raise out of my head, like
No, apparently they don't. I don't know the whole story. I know enough of the story, but at some point, both of the places, or there's probably 2 or 3 places, we get our car service, between all of our vehicles, and they don't know us by now because here's the thing. We're not the kind of people to send them the
keep
episode.
it low.
We're not the kind of people to send them the episode after it's done.
It's great. It's
all right,
so
we have some good stuff to talk about today. Obviously, a full week coming up. We're going to Philly tomorrow, Kyle.
I know. I'm
Did
really
you know
excited.
this?
Yeah, because the last time we were there, it was like, hey, are we doing this thing? Scoping out some places, things like that. This time we're going, making decisions, making plans, dialing elements of the space in, and we've got a special surprise for everyone.
Special.
Actually.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if we're talking about that yet. Maybe we're not talking about that yet. Good morning, Larry Feldman. Yeah, we just said we're going to Philly. You're in Philly. We're going to be lightning fast in and out. Tomorrow, Kyle's flying in. I'm driving in because something's weird with flights from Philly to Syracuse to Philly. I don't even know.
From Philly to from Syracuse to everywhere. Like every flight you've looked up is $893.
I don't understand. It seems like it's coming down. I don't know if there's like a temporary blip because like future flights look like they're back to normal. I was checking it out, but we're going to Philly. It's a lot happens in a month. Happens in a month, but we'll be on the ground. So if you want to follow along on Instagram is probably where we'll post some stories. Kyle and I do some stuff, but we also are going to be leaning into the Automotive State of the Union account. So search us on Instagram, Automotive State of the Union. And we also have a special ASOTU Con Instagram account, which is going to be the hotness if you're going, or if you just really wish you could go. We still want you to follow along with us there. So that's Philly tomorrow. Be looking out for it. Let's talk. Let's just get into it.
Just go for it.
You started this service experience conversation. I was like, wait, don't finish. I want to hear the punchline live on the show. So go ahead, rip it in.
All right. So my family and I, we've got 3 kids, and so one of our cars handles the whole family. One of the cars does not handle the whole family. So we needed to take the whole fam to get an oil change, which is still a mind-boggling proposition for me, having spent over 12 years in retail automotive, and just literally my oil change happened while I was at work. So whole new proposition, but we're headed there. We dropped the car off. I actually dropped them off at the Taco Bell down the street, which that's a whole other experience that you don't really want to know about, right?
Are you okay? Are you okay?
I know it was a rough weekend, ladies and gentlemen. No, yeah. So I dropped them off. I go drop the car off. They use, I think I've said this before. It's the same store that I've been at before, if you've been listening to the pod, but they use X time. So they checked me in. They were generally nice, like nothing to write home about. No, wow moment when I arrived or meeting me at the car, but generally nice,
but adequate, right?
Yeah, adequate. Like I would not be mad at my experience or anything like that. I get a text, hey, your vehicle's checked in, and then I got a quick text, which was my first communication back as I'm walking over to the Taco Bell, which is about a block away. That just said, hey, we see you've got some recalls on the car, but it would take over a half a day for us to get all of those done. Would you like to just schedule that when you come back and check out? And I said, yeah, sounds great. Right. Well, so we go through lunch and we have to walk back over. I don't really hear any communication. Actually, I just don't hear any communication from the advisor until about 10 to 15 minutes from us getting ready to check out. He says, hey, you're, 10 to 15 minutes. Tech is still working on getting the oil change done. And so I think nothing of it. I'm like, oh, car's great. Not a problem. And so 10 to 15 minutes go by. I'm kind of, poking around. I think he was like eating a burrito or something. Who knows? It was lunchtime. I'll give it to him.
There's a lot of Taco Bell in this story.
A lot of Taco Bell happening. But I get up to the desk and nothing's, like all the kids are ready to go. They're using the restroom. It's like we got a 20-minute drive back to the house. So we're gearing up. and I see my wife and kids walking out to the car, right, in the service lane. And the advisor is checking me out. It's 74, blah, 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 for the synthetic oil change. And the next thing he says is, hey, whenever you're ready to schedule that, just give me a call. Boom, cards me, right? First, like, cardinal sin in the follow-up perspective, right? But that's not even the biggest thing, because I'm a pretty diligent guy and I'm going to schedule those recalls, okay? He said he has me sign the documents. And the very next thing he says is, hey, the technician recommended a few things, but I know you're busy and I know you had the family with you. So I just thought I'd staple them here so you can check out and see if you want to get them done at a later date.
Well, Kyle, those must have been two very time-consuming things.
Super time-consuming.
That level of sensitivity and empathy.
Extremely time-consuming. He had the four, he had the four normals: transmission fluid, brake fluid, right? All the four fluids, and give it to him. Great job, technician. You put in the ASRs. But then the next two, and this is literally, my wife's driving home and I'm reading the papers. The last two on there are the cabin air filter and the battery, which, if you think about it, are a lot of times just like shoe-ins for additional service recommended.
That was one text message away.
It was one text message away. Here's what's crazy. The technician took the time to both photo the cabin air filter and run the battery test, on which the cabin air filter looked like a smoker been smoking in that thing. I must have not done it the last 3 times, right? And the battery on the slip says replace battery, which I know from being in the business.
That's a problem.
There's a chance my wife's getting stranded in the next week, right?
But you were busy.
And now I'm on my way home, and the kids are ready to get home. And so literally, if he would have texted me that in the middle of my service visit, $226 in additional customer paid dollars on that.
There's a service manager rolling over in his grave if he's listening to this, which he's not. We should anonymously send him this episode. We should do him a favor and anonymously send him this episode. This is happening every day across the industry, and you just don't know about it, right? It's a situation where the processes have been put in place, right? Obviously, at the X time, the technician is trained on it. The technician is deploying to it, and it broke down at the advisor, which you would think would be one of the last places. Typically, it would break down at the technician. They're busy. They follow the process. It broke down. Not only that, but you're paying attention, but the battery thing is, in my opinion, is like an extremely important one to someone who just shuttles family in, right? Like wife, kid, baby, right?
Exactly.
And it's like replace battery.
And so I put, as I'm headed home, because my wife was like, "Oh, is this one making to the pod?" And I was like, "You better believe it's making to the pod." And so
put it in the show notes for Monday right there.
Yeah, I put it in the show notes for Monday, and I said ASR is CX, right? So if you don't know, ASR, additional services recommended, is CX, customer experience. And for me, like, me getting recommended those services would have been of massive benefit and of necessity. It's like taking onus of the customer experience, not just in that service visit, but for like the ownership part of the experience. My customer experience is dependent on me spending dollars with you, because now I don't have to worry about my battery, but now I'm going to have to until I can find the time to go take that vehicle that transports my family out of its like necessity in duty. And so recognizing that like the right services recommended in your service department are not an inconvenience to your customer. They're not even just a room for profit. They're actually a consideration of that person's ownership experience. And so not recommending them is actually detracting from that person's ability to utilize that vehicle in a safe, secure, and the best way possible.
It's a backwards way to think about it, right? Because in the dealerships we see, and the mentalities we see, we're literally serving the customer is at the top of the totem pole. And everyone says it is, but we know it's not the truth. Serving the customer, what's best for the customer, what's best for the customer. If that really is the fundamental thought, then your battery, especially your battery, would have been recommended to change. But there's a mentality obviously in there that it's actually just a sales opportunity and it's not helping the customer drive better, right? It's just like, oh, this is bothering him with things I need to ask him. And the excuse the service advisor gave you was convenient for the service advisor, obviously.
Right. Exactly.
And so, hey, real life situation brought to you fresh off of the weekend. You know, this is happening in stores all the country, right? And it's our desire to bring these things out the front so that we can say, let's make this better. Speaking of things getting,
wait. I just want to say this because this could come across as like the vendor shouting at the dealer, and I get that. The goal here is one, to like prove to the industry that customers expect this level of service, but also I just want to say, like, this service advisor was really, really kind and really, really generous with his smiles and with his energy. It's just these small misses that can make a massive impact in customer experience. So sorry I missed your segue.
I think it was a big miss. That's my opinion. You're being gratuitous. Speaking of things that are gratuitous,
Stop.
Segue.
Time.
All right. I'm going to actually skip to the third story because I did a segue to the third story and I skipped the second story. Some microchip makers are actually signaling the end of the chip boom, according to the Philadelphia Semiconductor Index, which I didn't even know was a thing. I don't think anybody that's listening to this podcast knew his thing, but it's in Philadelphia, so I had to mention it. They track global chip makers like Intel, Qualcomm, ASML. On an earnings call, they said that the chip index has risen by 1.9%, and that's profit. But on an earnings call, warnings were issued by TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, that said, we have a lot of chips and we think sales are going to go down because there are a lot of chips. Basically, something that we haven't heard in a long time. And the reason they're saying is that manufacturers consumer electronics have stockpiled chips. And now that consumer demand for those devices is starting to wane, they're going to start to burn through their stockpile and not place new orders. I was thinking about the toilet paper shortage, right? A couple of American households, right, had 4 or 5, whoever knows how many, Costco sized things of toilet paper, which means there was a huge shortage. And then once it became available again, sales were pretty slow. Why? Because like people are like, I guess I don't need 100 rolls of toilet paper in my house. So this is a great news for semiconductors. And even this isn't just that company. Also, there was Intel CEO David Zinsser. He mirrored the sentiment and they said, hey, Q3 revenue is going to be a little lower. We're projecting that already because suppliers are going to be burning through supplies of their chips. And where is the comment that came in from the other one? Hold on. Oh man, I'm missing it.
While you're finding that, this is a good zoom out opportunity. And the reason why we like to pay attention to all of retail and not just auto, because though in auto, we're talking a lot about chips and the inability to produce vehicles or ground stock sitting there waiting on chips or heated seats going away. The reality is that the majority of the chips in the world are used for consumer electronic goods. And one of the reasons why chips were in a shortage was not just these fires or things like that were dedicated chips for auto manufacturers, but because of a move to remote work and necessity on laptops or consumer electronics that would push people into purchasing more of those things that needed those semiconductors. So now when that pulls back, you get more opportunity for larger consumer goods, including automobiles. And so paying attention to that side of retail and understanding the dynamics of what's being purchased actually influences the ability for auto manufacturers to get back in the game from a chip perspective. So really interesting kind of dynamic between retail worlds.
For sure. Acer company we're all familiar with, the CEO Jason Chen said the situation has changed, to quote him, regarding the shortage. And he said, I'm getting sales calls again. Chip companies being like, hey, you want to buy some more chips? You want to buy some chips this month? You want to buy, how about some chips next month, right? You think of like the whole semiconductor chip sales team over the pandemic was like.
They were like sipping coffee, putting their feet up like, yo, boss, we ain't got it. Wait.
Right now it's like, what short, like, we got to call people again.
Wait. Could this be a leading indicator on ground stock inventory in new car sales?
It could be a leading indicator because if you hear a manufacturer give you a chip excuse, it's probably not going to be the truth anymore. I would call it a leading indicator. I don't know, just one man's opinion.
Yeah.
So they did, they obviously cited waning demand for consumer electronics, but they did actually mention specifically demand for chips for cars being very strong. So I think that validates and verifies a lot of the information we've been talking about, that just consumer demand is pent up. There's still a pretty large demand. And now the chip companies are maybe looking at automotive with a little bit more gratitude, because if you remember in the beginning of the pandemic, it was tough to get them to allocate to vehicles because guess what? They're not like the most profitable clients, like they need to go on PlayStations. We got kids home pretending to be at school on Zoom. They need PlayStation things. So chip shortage days definitely coming soon to the history books. Inventory is not far behind. And I think now we're really going to start to get to see who's been doing what dealerships have been doing the work in the off season, right? When the inventory is not there. We've been on calls all week, last week and the week before, people saying, no, the inventory is coming, like manufacturer rhetoric, like in the back end sales calls. So it's coming. What are you going to do? We're about to see if you've been working out, if you've been eating donuts.
Hey, look, because you can get fat on easy sales, so it's time to press in and make sure that your processes and your paths to the purchase are dialed in. So speaking of the path to the purchase,
stop.
Segue
time.
I did the own dance. We didn't have the graphics, so.
I actually love this retail report, and it talks all about how millennials and even Gen Z are interacting with a full path to the purchase and where they spend the majority of their time. So we've got a few stats here, Paul. I'll probably let you kind of walk through them just because you made these show notes. But I think it's really like paying attention to where people are spending the most time in their shopping journey, and recognizing that it is a shopping journey and not just like a one-stop shop is really important. And some of this research is leading us to see like, hey, you can't just focus on one part of the process or one part of the journey. You have to watch the whole map, right?
Yes, and this definitely comes from something called the Variant Experience Index for Retail Report. It's the 2022 version, which basically ranks the omnichannel experiences of the top 25 largest retailers in the U.S. based on revenue. So here we are, outside automotive, looking for indicators in outside retail. Fewer than 36% of those surveyed are Gen Z and millennial consumers under 40. They said they prefer to visit stores when interacting with retailers, compared to more than 2/3 of boomers. So basically, under 40% actually want to visit the store of Gen Z, and 2/3 want to visit the store for the next level up, or the boomers. So over 75% of the respondents used at least one other digital resource other than that one that the company provided to make their purchasing decisions. So other websites, influencers, social media, right? So it's a little complex. They're not just going to the site. What they're actually doing is going to the site, and then they're checking their other favorite website, and then social media influencers and consumer ratings in order to make their decision. I'll read one more stat and then we can jam. Over 51% though place a very high value on like what you would call click and collect. I want to buy it on my phone or online, and then I want to go to the brick and mortar store to pick it up, or interact and get curbside or pick up in store. So only 28%. So here it is. Over half of the people like that dual experience of doing something on the phone and doing something in person. And only 28% said, I want to do it all online. So, I mean, that's a lot of stats, but I mean, that's a heck of an insight. Insight.
Yeah. And I think this is what we have to realize is you have to be great in both places, and you have to be great across all mediums, right? Mm-hmm. So whether that be third-party inventory providers or reviews sites or social media or your own website or your brick and mortar experience, whether it be just pickup or the full process, that they all have to talk, right? Gone are the days where it's like, oh, that's a digital customer. Oh, that's an in-store shopper, like that they would behave differently. Actually, they're playing in all of those worlds and making sure that it is a seamless online to offline or offline to online experience. And, it cracks me up every day when I hear like, oh, if they buy online, they get the blank,
Oh,
blank
no,
brand,
no.
right? And it's like, no, actually the whole thing should be engulfed in what your unique selling proposition, your why, buy, all of that type of stuff, because you never know how many touch points someone is gonna go through. I mean, there's a CDP provider, customer data platform provider in automotive, that is able to kind of look at the digital journey across multiple touch points. And I've seen customers hitting anywhere between 15 and 25 different parts of a mappable journey.
Right.
That's
How
the
much
touch
of that's
points
not
that we
even on
can
there?
see, right?
Look, there's no doubt. I don't know if you've heard, but Gen Zers are a little cynical, right? A little skeptical that you're actually doing what you say. So this fragmented journey across platforms is just not going to cut it. Jenny Polasek, VP of Marketing Insights for Verint of Experience and Enablement, says, quote, Gen Z are by no means the only demographic that brands should focus on to adapt and enhance the customer journey. But since they're the most likely to engage digitally, seamless experience are the biggest drivers for better customer satisfaction, NPS, which is Net Promoter Score, and repeat business. So here's the takeaway. If you prioritize the Gen Z experience, you're going to get everybody else. Everyone else is going to have a great time, right? It's why Nike and fashion brands target 18 to 35 demographic. Why? Because if we get them in on it and to think it's good and to think it's cool and to jive with it, guess what? Everyone else is going to enjoy the experience as well. We wish we had more time for this experience today, but we got one coming. We have so much fun to announce tomorrow. Things that are coming with the Auto Collabs podcast, new one, but it's just Monday. It's just Monday. We got to get to work. So do you. We'll see you tomorrow.
Get